What's up, guys? In this video, we're going to take a look at how to remove an old drivetrain that just isn't working anymore, or maybe you want to upgrade, like I'm doing in this case, to the new SRAM 520 Eagle. First things first, you're going to remove the rear tire. You can push back on the derailleur cage, makes it a little easier to pop that rear tire out. Next, you're going to want to remove the chain. I'm using the Parks Tool MLP12 chain removal tool to break the master link. You can find them for around 20 bucks and well worth it. If you've ever tried to break a chain with a piece of wire or needle nose pliers, it's horrible. Just invest in your bike, spend the 20 bucks and get a pair of these. It makes it super easy to remove a master link and also put one back on. Next, you're gonna remove the chain. Just pull it out through the derailleur. I like to hang on to my old chains, throw them in a tool bag just in case of an emergency. Next up, you're going to remove the derailleur cable from the derailleur. You can see here, I hold up the derailleur cable. Mine's pretty frayed on the end. I'll show you something you need to take care of before. What you want to do next is cut that cable so it's clean. So when it goes through the cable housing, it's not damaging it if you're going to be reusing it. I'm using the Parks Tool CN10 Pro Cable House Cutting tool. They're kind of expensive, around $40, but if you've ever tried to cut a cable with just some normal cutting pliers, you know how difficult it is. Or I've even tried, Dremel tools in the past, and while these cable cutters are expensive, they work so much better. They also have a tool on the end to clamp the little cable nipple on the end as well. Next, I'm removing the derailleur from the derailleur hanger. Because it's totally separated now without the cable, after that bolt's loose, you should be able to just pull it right off. The derailleur hanger on this bike was a little bit bent, and they're fairly inexpensive, so I thought it'd be a good time to replace that as well. So I'm taking that off, and I'll be replacing that with a new derailleur hanger. Next, I'm going to take off the cranks. I'll be using the Parks Tool CCP44 crank puller tool. I'll link to all these tools I'm using down in the description. There are a few different types of crank pullers out there, depending on the type of bottom bracket you have or cranks that you're removing. So make sure that whatever you buy is compatible. This crank puller from Parks is only about 15 bucks, another good thing to have in your toolbox. First, loosen the bolt that's holding your cranks into the bottom bracket. This is usually an 8mm Allen key. Make sure you have the main bolt and the washer attached to it out of the crank before you insert the crank puller. You can try to wiggle it and see if it'll come out without using the crank puller first, but most of the time they're stuck pretty good. Make sure the crank puller is threaded all the way in when you thread it into the crank arm. And this is a normal thread, righty-tighty. And once you feel it snug up against the crank, then you start spinning the outer handle. And what that does is actually applies pressure on the inside to push the crank outward. So it's actually separating the two pieces. You'll feel it get easier, and then you know it's loosened up, and you can usually pull it off by hand after that. And you can see here how the tip of the crank puller is pushed out, and that's actually what creates the separation and pulls the crank arm. Up next, I'll be removing the bottom bracket. Again, I'm using a Parks bottom bracket tool. This is the BBT9. Some bottom brackets are press fit and they won't have threads on them. This is a threaded bottom bracket, so it screws in and out. The thread direction on these bottom brackets are the same directions on both sides. So you may be turning it towards yourself if you're standing at the rear of the bike on both the left and right side. Sometimes when these bottom brackets are installed, they have spacers with them as well. Make sure you pull those off. Sometimes they're on the inside against the frame or on the outside. Next, we're going to be removing the rear cassette from the rear tire. You're going to need some special tools for this. You're going to need a cassette lock ring tool. These are pretty inexpensive, usually around 10 bucks, and a chain whip to hold the cassette from rotating when you're trying to loosen it. If you've never done this before, it can make some weird noises as you're loosening it at the beginning, as the cassette is loosening from the free hub. And it just slides off once that's loose. And that's about it for removing your drivetrain from your mountain bike. There may be some little differences here, depending on if you're using Shimano or SRAM components. But the general ideas here, I'll list the tools that I've used below. If you'd like to see us install the new SRAM Eagle 520, subscribe to the channel, and that video will be up soon. If you have any questions or comments or have trouble removing your drivetrain, leave them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them. If you're looking for the best price on mountain bike drivetrains, head over to GearChase.com. We search over 300 different online retailers.